Can you dig it?
Let's take this house and everything that comes with
The Continental has some big shoes and expectations to fill. It is all set in the successful John Wick universe, one that has become infamous for its gunplay, martial arts fight scenes, and innovative weapons and action scenes. Not to mention, it has one of Hollywood's best actors in Keanu Reeves. Being a prequel in the universe probably helps to tone down some expectations in regards to weapons and tactics, but fighting and action are timeless. And if it's done right, a prequel can be better than a modern day weapons and equipment. The biggest drawback to doing anything before a known title is having rules and stories already in place that the fans are aware of. So this allows for less creativity or adapting a story to suit the actors. It can be difficult to create a prequel to a series that's already beloved by fans, because you have to conform to the stories that are already there while attempting to tell a new story. So it's challenging. We're all just curious to see how the Continental will come out. And if I had to categorize this series, it's kind of a mix of Dead Presidents, Ocean's 11, within the world of John Wick. So that's the mix, that's a story. Now let's go ahead and actually get down to it. Because let's go ahead and actually be honest with you. You want to go ahead and actually know your reviewer's perspective when going actually doing these reviews, just to make your own educated decision on, is this person that target audience or not. Now for me, I love the John Wick series. I'm also an action fan, so I am the target audience for this type of series. Why do you want to know that? Because I watched the first 2 episodes of brand new content on streaming services to see if it's right for you. I watched so you don't have to. If you like how that sounds, do me a favor, click like, share, subscribe. And now, let me get into this review. The Continental premiered on Peacock in September of 2023. Now, there are only 3 episodes in this miniseries, and episodes are about an hour and 15 minutes each. I will go and actually preface this by saying this. I watched all 3 episodes. With it only being 3 episodes long, I felt it was right for me to watch the entire series. So this is where we kind of go and actually get away from the 2-episode format that I normally have. With that being said, let's take a look at who this stars and what's the synopsis for the Continental. That stars Mel Gibson as the current owner of the Continental, Cormac O'Connor, Colin Woodall as the young charismatic businessman Winston Scott, and Michelle Prada as New York City detective KD. The setup that we have is the Continental explores the origin behind the iconic Hotel for Assassins centerpiece of the John Wick universe through the eyes and actions of a young Winston Scott as he's dragged into the hellscape of the 1970s New York City to face a past he thought he'd left behind. Winston charts a deadly course through the hotel's mysterious underworld in a harrowing attempt to seize the hotel where he will eventually take his throne. So that's what they got for a story for us. My expectations are like this. First and foremost, let's get some good action and fight scenes. That's why we enter the John Wick world. That's what we really want. So you gotta have good action. You gotta have good scenes, gunplay if they're involved in that, or swordplay, whatever the case may be. But that's what we crave. That's first and foremost. Second, we want a good story and give some purpose. John Wick is told by, he goes off because of his dead dog of his, and there's a story behind that, things like that. But it's kind of like, it's no reason to go off the way that he does, but it works for us. We ride with it. We want a purpose to go and actually tell the story of the Continental, make it make sense so we know why we're going ahead and actually doing fighting, because we anticipate some crazy fights going on. And the last part of it is add to the John Wick universe. I mean, if we're going to go ahead and actually stay in that universe, then you got to add something to the lore. Tell us a little bit something about Winston. Tell us a little bit something about the Continental and other characters that may relate to stories already established, or at least how some of the stuff works. So that's one of the things that we're going to actually looking at to see if we're going to add more to the John Wick lore. So now we have the expectations, the story, who it stars, all that kind of good stuff. Let's take a deeper look at the Continental. I actually liked most of the acting in this series. From what's being asked of the cast, they did a good job. I don't feel like any one person stood out, but overall, it was decent. I enjoyed watching it. I can go ahead and actually see the hints of Woodall having some of the mannerisms that the future Winston Scott would have, but mostly he adapts this to be his own character. Oddly enough, the biggest drawback in the acting in this series is the biggest name in the cast, and that's Mel Gibson. I think he plays the character like too big, too robust, too ridiculous, and maybe that's how they wrote him, but it would be so much better if he was more tempered with just like kind of like subtle explosions. He's always just evil, and it makes you wonder how a guy like that runs a hotel full of assassins with any kind of consistency. Like, who's going to go ahead and actually just bow down to this guy? He's always over the top. It's crazy. I will, however, give credit for continuing the John Wick trend of introducing weird persons as assassins. Like the crazy emo boy-girl twins that just crazy, off the chart, what have you. The high table adjudicator who wears the mask over her lower half because she has a deformed face, and a bunch of the other assassins there. They do justice to the usual John Wick thing of crazy assassins that almost look like video game characters. So that's awesome. So if we go ahead and actually really look at it, the acting was decent and it did not detract from the viewing. Now, when we're looking at the story being told, this is basically a family heist series with some action scenes intertwined with it. The story that drives this series forward is that it's just as ridiculous as the John Wick movies themselves are. Like, everyone is fighting for pride, honor, perception, all that kind of stuff. No one ever sits there and thinks like, maybe we should stand down, maybe we should roll back or whatever. And that's the way the John Wick universe goes, but it's hilarious to just see like, man, nobody's ever thinking about maybe we should just do something different, or if they do say it, they end up going full bore into it anyway. So it's crazy. And in this one, it seems even crazier with what gets stolen and how the pursuit goes. And the thing is, if you're someone that's never watched a John Wick movie, you wouldn't really understand why the stolen item is even that big of a deal for them to go forward with it. Even with me as someone who actually understands it and knows the lore, it just seems that there's plenty of other ways that this series could have went to tell the story. Pick something else, have someone else be the target or something else. It was a weird way to go with it. It was almost kind of like, again, like a MacGuffin type of thing. Like, yes, this is what sets everything off, and we go this hard on getting that particular object and things like that. So it's just, for me, it was kind of a little bit, that wasn't enough to go and actually motivate everything that happened, but it happened and it gave us the movie, so it is what it is. I do like the usage of Vietnam vets, as this is set in 70s New York, that it would have made sense that you had Vietnam veterans coming back. Some of these people have, obviously these folks have been trained in gunplay, they've been trained into some hand-to-hand combat. Some of them maybe have learned martial arts and things like that. So there was a good representation of that scenario playing out in 70s New York, and I think that was a good setting for it. The story overall it didn't excite me. As I said here, it was kind of like it's paper thin as far as what prompts everything to go. It was decent enough to go and actually get some action going, but there's nothing deep. There wasn't anything layered or anything like that. Some other thoughts that I have about this particular series. So not much was added to the John Wick lore in these episodes. It's kind of like the high table exists, the Bowery exists, the Continental is powerful at the time, commerce and assassinations are happening, and it's at a lighter version in the movies. Like, we see like some more grandiose happenings happen with the assassinations and things like that in the movies, but we at least know that the business is going on like it's supposed to. The one thing that we're kind of seeing in this series is that perhaps that the police have been instructed to kind of give the hotel a wide berth and how it handles outside people. So from that point, we kind of see, because if you've ever watched a John Wick movie, you have to go on and actually say, is there nothing but assassins in this world, and where are the police and things like that? And here we kind of see like, the police are aware of the Continental and stuff that happens around there, but they kind of look the other way. So that was actually kind of intriguing. I would have loved to have kind of seen the tech security measures and services in that area versus how it is now. Now there's a little bit of the tech aspect of it in the third episode, but the services, when I say services, I'm meaning like there is the armory that John Wick visits in the Continental in modern day. There is services of the doctor being used and medicine that being used in the Continental. There's just different things that it would have been nice to have seen that, how that transpired in the 70s or what have you. Nothing major, but it would have been nice to have seen that. Things that I really liked about this one is in the first episode it's born from a standpoint of like action. There's not much action in the first episode. In the second one, you actually get some more action scenes and you kind of get ramped up and you're like, okay, there's at least a couple of good scenes in there that I really liked. And then by the third episode, they go all in and you are getting full on John Wick that you really like. And so that was really awesome to see. It was a slow ramp up to getting that action, but once they started getting those action scenes in there for you, it really did start to feel like one of those movies, and you like that. The other thing that was really noticeable about this is the soundtrack that this series plays on. Whether you're there's different genres that are era appropriate to this in the 70s, where it's like going with like soul, R&B, pop, rock from that era, and I liked that soundtrack. It was really jamming. I loved hearing some of that sound. But those are all my thoughts, everything that I could go ahead and actually kind of squeeze out of the Continental. What is my actual verdict for this series? I'm going to go ahead and actually say, for main target audience members, watch all 3 episodes. Keep in mind, the first episode is going to be pretty boring. There's like maybe one action scene in there in the first episode, but everything else is storytelling, it's building up. The second one gets you a little bit more of the assembly, getting deeper into there, how things are going to go ahead and actually occur, bridging you to the third one, get you some good action scenes or what have you. And then the third one is full on prequel to John Wick series. You love it. And so you want to go ahead and actually watch everything in order to go ahead and actually understand the story, the build up, and then ultimately the payoff for it all. For casual audiences, I'm going to say watch the first episode. And I know it's hard to go ahead and actually say, like, why would you only tell people only watch the first episode in a John Wick when you know the actions in the second and third episodes? I think a casual person, if you're going to go ahead and actually, the action means nothing if you don't care about the characters. And in the first episode, they do at least go ahead and actually build up the characters so that you can go ahead and actually, I like these characters, and I'm interested to see what happens in the action scenes going forth. And I think you actually get a good representation of that. There's, like I said, there's one good action scene in there, but the actual storytelling that happens for that first episode is enough to tell a casual, hey, well, I like this or not. If you want the action and you want to be able to gauge off of that, then you have to watch the first 2 episodes as a casual to really kind of feel, all right, am I going to like this series? So for my main target audience members, you're going to watch all 3 episodes. That's what you do. For casuals, watch 1, maybe the second episode, so that you could go and actually dip your toe in and see if you really want to watch all of it. But that's what I have for the Continental on Peacock. Check it out. I appreciate you staying for the entire review. I really do. Do me a favor, click like if I did a pretty decent job. If you really think I did a good job, go ahead and actually subscribe. And if I did that good of a job, you might want to check out one of these other reviews that I've done as well. But until the next time, I'll holler at you. Take care of yourself.